The mantel clock ticked once, twice, a measured third. Brass caught rain blue light from a bay window. A woman turned toward a soft rap at her door. A sleeve rose under the corridor lamp. At dawn, patrol lights washed wet brick as they carried her out beneath the placard reading 4A. Dawn over the terrace's hillside, rain slicking the stone steps. A uniformed officer strung yellow tape across a wrought iron gate. The camera climbed past hedges and fog to a narrow landing where two doors stood side by side. One carried the number 4A, the other 4B. A yellow builder's lockbox hung from the railing between them, waiting. Knox climbed the hillside 2 steps at a time, peacoat collar up against the fog. Leen met him at the gate with a tablet already open to the floor plan. The victim was Lenore Day, the townhouse owner. The body was inside Unit 4A. Knox turned his wristwatch face out, read the time, and turned it back inward. Inside 4A, the living room was freshly painted, drop cloths folded against one corner. Lenore Day lay face down beside the dining table. A reading lamp still burned from the night before. On the table, a manila folder of signed purchase orders lay splayed. The top 2 sheets detailing premium brass fixtures billed to the townhouse. Leen walked Knox through the witness list. 3 people visited Lenore inside 4A between 6 and 9 the previous evening, a neighbor and architect, and the site foreman. Knox tapped his forefinger against his thumb, a slow 3 count, and asked who had found the body. Leen, said the foreman, Casper Vale. He called it in at 6:04. Doctor? Iona Hale knelt beside the body in pale blue scrubs. She lowered her gold wire rims a half inch, paused, and delivered the finding flat. Time of death, between 7 and 8. Blunt force to the occipital. No defensive wounds. Knox asked if she could narrow the window. She told him speculation was his job, and clicked her clipboard shut. Knox paced the living room of 4A, watch turned face in. At the bay window he stopped. The inside pane was beaded with cold condensation along its east edge, fog hour moisture fixed to a room facing southwest toward the bay. In the hallway, a rectangular dust shadow traced a sconce that no longer hung on the north wall. A paint patch sat opposite, on the south wall. He tapped his thumb. Petra Song sat on her own couch next door. A group photo from last night's book club lay on the coffee table. A wall clock in the frame reading 8:12. She admitted the easement feud but insisted she had been home all evening. Leen played the deleted voicemail, timestamp 7:14. Petra's voice on the recording was flat, promising Lenore she would regret the easement. Daryl Keene stood on the scaffolding landing at the back of the property. A navy rain jacket zipped to his chin. Leen asked about the copper piping. He denied it, mumbled about his mother, then pointed without being asked at a tear along his right sleeve, insisting he had ripped it on the site railing. Knox repeated the phrase back, flat. Back in her own living room, Petra scrolled her phone for Leen and produced a photo taken inside Lenore's unit at 6:52 the previous evening, when she had dropped off a borrowed casserole dish. The picture showed the mantel clock casting a long angled shadow along a painted wall, the clock face reading 6:52. Leen saved the image. At the base of the hillside stairs, a forensics tech tweezed a scrap of navy waterproof fabric off the iron railing and dropped it into an evidence bag. Leen photographed the tier. Knox stared up the long run of wet steps, then down. He turned his signet ring once. Knox returned to the 4A hallway and crouched at the baseboard. The dust rectangle on the north wall was crisp, the migration recent. He drew a finger along the paint patch on the south. Leen said aloud, for the first time in the case, that 2 witnesses had described this living room, and their descriptions did not match. Knox tapped his thumb. Leen played the 7:14 voicemail again in the hallway, slowed to half speed. Behind Petra's flat voice, a dog barked 3 times and a kettle whistled. Petra's kitchen kettle was a sage green model, visible in the book club photo. The background audio placed her inside her own kitchen, not Lenore's unit. Knox lifted the plastic sheeting and stepped into 4B. The room was a mirror of 4A, same dimensions, same fixtures, same palette, flipped left for right. At the bay window he stopped. The inside pane was beaded with fog hour condensation along its west edge, fixed to a room facing northeast. He turned his watch face out, then back. On the stairwell railing, Knox and Leen examined the yellow lockbox and the 2 temporary placards screwed above the doors. The placards looked identical from a step away. Up close, matching scratch patterns ringed each screw hole, as though the same screws had been driven and red-driven over recent days. A fresh smear of charcoal putty sat in the combination dial between the 3 and the 7. At the Ashvale PD evidence bench, Rook Cho worked in black latex gloves and a navy polo clipboard in hand. He logged the 4A placard into a sealed bag and turned away mid-sentence. Leen asked whether this was the placard that had hung on the 4A door the night of the killing. Without looking up, Rook reminded her that if it was not in the bag, it had not happened. Hollis Brandt met Leen in a zoning office corridor and produced a time-stamped check-in from the 8:45 review. He had driven straight home after. He freely admitted Lenore had threatened his license over the load-bearing changes, then added that Casper Vale had kept revising the door numbers on the site plans. Knox listened from the doorway and tapped his thumb once. Casper Vale sat across from Knox in a PD interview room. He said he had dropped a key at 4A around 6:30, left for a lumberyard run in the flats by 7, reached a ramen bar in Old Harrow at 9:30 with his partner, and returned at dawn to check the paint line finding Lenore. Knox repeated the phrase back, flat, and turned his signet ring once. Knox's apartment at night. He laid the two mirrored floor plans side by side under a single desk lamp. Tea went cold in its cup. On the corkboard behind him, deep in the shadow between thumbtacks, a blurry Polaroid of a younger Knox shaking hands with a faceless older man in a gray wool coat hung unremarked. He rotated the 4B plan 180 degrees and went still. The pendulum swings. The minute hand does not move. Minutes don't lie. People do. In the Ashvale PD case room, Knox pinned the two mirrored floor plans side by side. Under 4A, he tacked the dust ring photo. The bay window condensation still the mantel clock shadow. The placard scratch close-ups, the lockbox putty tag, and the purchase order stack. Leen stood with her arms folded. Knox rotated the 4B plan and pinned it over 4A. Knox traced the overlay with the back of a pen. The migrated sconce lined up. The mantel clock shadow at 6:52 lined up. The bay window condensation edge lined up. Every physical tell inside 4A matched the orientation of 4B, not 4A. He turned to Leen and said the building itself had been telling them all day that the witnesses had not been where they thought. He walked it in order. At 6:30, Casper dropped a key at what he called 4A. At 6:52, Petra's photo showed a shadow possible only in 4B. Between 6 and 7, Casper swapped placards and migrated the sconce. Petra's voicemail placed her in her kitchen. Hollis had zoning tape. Daryl's sleeve tore on the railing. Lenore was killed inside 4B. Before dawn, her body crossed the party wall. Casper Vale. Leen grabbed her coat. The captain nodded once. Two patrol units peeled off the lot of Ashvale PD into the rain, blue light spilling across wet asphalt. Knox pocketed his notebook and turned his watch face out. Pre-dawn on the Terraces hillside. Casper Vale crouched at the lockbox, screwdriver in hand, the 4A placard already free, and the 4B placard half unscrewed, putty smudged on his thumb. Blue light washed up the stone steps. Leen read him his rights. He did not run. He set the screwdriver on the railing with both hands flat and let the cuffs close. Morning rain on Knox's window. The mirrored floor plan sat rolled at the edge of his desk. He turned a small brass door number once in his fingers. Evidence pulled from the lockbox. On the corkboard, the blurry Polaroid hung between thumbtacks, a handshake he never questioned. His gaze caught it for one beat. He set the brass number down.